Hello everybody, how's it going? It's me, Krendor, and today we're going to be talking about the new General's Handbook that's coming out very soon. We know quite a bit about it now. I actually got an early access copy thanks to Games Workshop, so thank you to them for sending me the early access copy. So I've been reading it for a few weeks now, trying to think about stuff, how to play it, what's good, what's bad, and I kind of wanted to give my thoughts on it. So yeah, so first, let's go over what's new, right? For everybody that doesn't know, well, for everybody that doesn't even know what a GHB is, so this is essentially how the game is played, right? Like the core rules, right? So the big things here are new mechanics, new battalions, new battle tactics, new grand strategies, right? A whole bunch of new stuff to kind of play the game differently. So last season was Galician Champions. And before that, we had Galician Veterans. And, well, I think we had Veterans. There's so many Galician things that it... whatever. But now we have Wizards. And they are called Antorian Locusts. I don't know why they keep making, the most difficult terminology. They could have just called them, something just simple. Andorian Wizards or something, right? Andorian, why do they have to be A-N-D-T, Antorian Locusts? What about just Andorian Wizards? But whatever, right? I don't care. So, the first thing we have is at the start of the battle round, after priorities determined, the player taking the second turn can pick a friendly hero on the battlefield. If that hero is a Locust, they can attempt one extra spell and attempt one extra unbind in that battle round. If they are not, they get a command point that can only be spent to allow that hero to issue a command. So that's actually a really nice incentive to go second, right? We keep talking about double turns and oh, I don't want to get double turned, but now the person going second, if you get a double turn and your opponent gets this and then, they get to cast an extra spell and bind an extra spell, in this GHB, that could be very nice. Plus, just getting an extra command point, also a very nice thing. So, I mean, this is a much better incentive than the last couple GHB incentives, which were do another heroic action. It's cool. There's only 4 heroic actions you can do anyway, right? What? I'm gonna do heroic recovery and then get a command point, maybe. This is straight up you get a command point, so it's already just better. And then you're probably gonna have a wizard, so well, a Antoran Locust. By the way, an Antoran Locust is a wizard hero with a wounds characteristic of 9 or less that is not unique. So they can be mounted. That is very nice, especially for Ossiarch Bone Reapers. But my god, just some of the fact that, what's his name in the Beast of Chaos? The Dragon Ogre Shaggoth is 10 wounds. Just make him 9 wounds. They should just get rid of 10 wound heroes, man. Make them 9... or make them 11 or 12 wounds. If you're gonna make them 10, just buff them up a bit. I don't even care if they have to have a couple more points added onto their point cost. Either give them 9 or give them more HP. It's dumb having them be right at the borderline. You know what I mean? Whatever. So then we have Primal Magic. This is the big mechanic this season. So we have, at the start of the hero phase, both players roll a dice. For each 4-up, each player receives a Primal Magic dice. Note that you each get one. It's not, I rolled a 4-up, I get one. It's, I rolled a 4-up, we both get one. So you can actually get 2 Primal Magic dice per player per hero phase. Because it's just at the start of the hero phase. So there's going to be a lot of Primal Magic dice. So what it is after a player attempts to cast or unbind a spell, or after they attempt to dispel an endless spell, they can roll one of their Primal Magic dice. If they do so, add the result to the casting, unbinding, or dispelling roll. That player can continue to roll additional Primal Magic dice until the caster suffers a Primal Miscast, or there are no more Primal Magic dice to be rolled. Okay? So abilities that allow you to reroll casting, unbinding, or dispelling rolls must be used before Primal Magic dice are rolled. That's another important thing. And if you choose to use an ability reroll, use an ability to reroll a casting, unbinding, or dispelling roll, you cannot use Primal Magic dice to supplement that roll. So you have to be this was my roll, I'm now going to roll the Primal Magic dice, right? So what's a primal miscast? The big, like, why wouldn't I use primal magic dice, right? Wow, I rolled an extra dice and I get like a 5. Cool, I got my spell. So a primal magic dice is rolled as part of a casting roll or an unmodified casting roll that includes a double 1. The caster suffers a primal miscast. So if you roll, for example, like a 6 and a 1, and then you decide to roll your primal magic dice and it's a 1, that's a primal miscast. So if 2 of the 3 dice are a 1, you're screwed. So it's actually pretty much guaranteed that if you roll, like, say, a 5 and a 3, you're not even going to suffer a primal miscast if you use that primal miscast. So that's, like, the best time to use it, right? You're like, oh, I won't even primal miscast. But if you have a 1 in that cast, like a 6 and a 1, or a 4 and a 1 or something, then you're probably not going to want to do it. But that's honestly not that bad, because the majority of the time, I feel like you're going to either... Like, most of the time when you're rolling a 1, you're probably not getting the spell off, which I guess would be the risk-reward system, right? Say you roll like a 4, and you really want this spell to go off. Maybe you do risk that, right? You're like, you got like a 4 and a 1, and you get a 5, right? And you're trying to cast something on a 7. You're like, you know what? I'm going to bust out the primal miscast, or I'm going to bust out the primal magic dice and hope they get it, right? So cool. So I actually think that's pretty neat. When it's rolled as part of a casting roll or an unmodified casting roll that includes a double 6, that spell is successfully cast and cannot be unbound. In addition, the caster cannot attempt to cast any more spells that phase, and both players receive 1 primal magic dice. So it rewards both players for that happening. However, you can't cast any more spells. So you have to make sure this is like your second spell cast, or third, depending. If it's like a Slan, you probably don't want double 6s. Because right away you would just cast this and be like, ah, shit. I guess I can't cast any more spells, you know? So, anyway, neat. Then there's some new unique enhancements. So they have things for people that aren't wizards, so that's pretty neat. I'm not going to go through all these because I'm just trying to, like, give an impression. You can find places where you can read all this stuff, but essentially, you can get a Nullstone Adornment, which is a unique enhancement that can only be taken in an army that does not include any wizards, and they're essentially just anti-magic artifacts, really. Then, this is the kind of crazy part I want to talk about, which is the Realm Sphere magic. So there's Antoran Locus only. So you can't cast this with, like, Lord Croak. You can't cast these with, like, a unique with, like, Scragrot or whatever from the Gloomspite Gits. He can't do these. Like, these are reserved for your Antoran wizards. So things like Grey Seers, I think, are going to be really good. I already said the OBR wizards. You know, the Slan is probably going to be, like, the best wizard, Antoran wizard in the game at this point. All these wizards, they're the ones that can do this. So, one is Hoarfrost, and it's a spell that has a casting value of 8, range of 12. Pick a friendly unit wholly within range, invisible. Pick 1 melee weapon profile in that unit's war scroll and roll a d3. Change the to hit, to wound, or rend of that melee weapon to match the result until the start of your next hero phase. So, for example, if the result was a 2, you could change either the to hit, the to wound, or the rend to 2. So -2 or a 2 up, right? Which is actually insane when you think about this. Like, this spell can be really fun. This might be my favorite spell in the entire, like, GHB or, like, that they've done, because this allows so much creativity, right? It allows so many wacky things to happen. So, for example, say you're in Beast of Chaos, right? And you have a Gorgon. And your Gorgon is generally 4s to hit, 2s to wound, and then insane amounts of rend, right? So the hardest part of the Gorgon is getting that 2 up to hit. Well, if you cast this, you've already gotten it to, like, a 2 or a 3 to hit 66% of the time for the most part, right? So you're essentially making the Gorgon, like, 2s by 2s, minus, like, 3 or 4 rend, insane amounts of damage, right? Because you're just putting this on his one weapon that has all the attacks, which is the 4 to hit anyway. So, like, there's a lot of fun stuff you could do. I mean, you can take a unit that has no rend, right? Something that has maybe, like, no rend or only 1 rend, and all of a sudden now they have 2 or 3 rend. I mean, if you're Seraphon, for example, and you put this on the Saurus Rider guys, okay, so they're getting, like, 2 damage each at, like, -2, or I guess they're already -2, -3 rend if you bump it up. but I guess it would be one. Never mind, that's a bad example. My point is that there's a lot of units in the game where you can kind of take this risk, and they might have one stat line that's preventing them from being a really solid unit, and you cast this spell on them, and then boom, like all of a sudden they're really good, and the opponent has to be like, oh shit, like it's crazy. So I really like this. I think this is a lot of fun. It is melee only though, but that's fine. I don't, I think if you put it on range, people just do dumb shit. They're still gonna do dumb shit, but it's a little harder to get into melee and do it all. But I love this spell, man. I think it's really fun. So then we have Rupture. Spells casting value 10, range of 18. These casting values are very high, by the way, because they assume you're using primal magic dice, is what I predicted. If successfully cast, pick a predatory endless spell or incarnate wholly within range that immediately becomes wild, cannot be picked to be controlled or bonded, whatever, I don't care. And then Merciless Blizzard. This is the big one. Casting value 12 and a range of 12. Pick an enemy unit. They take 4d6 mortal wounds, but for each roll of 1, the caster also suffers d3 mortal wounds, and the wounds cannot be negated. So this is essentially just a wacky-ass single target nuke. And I love it. And then the fact that this is the most Skaven GHB spell I think they've done, right? It's like you're gonna blow something up or you're gonna blow yourself up. This is like the warp lightning. This is literally the warp lightning cannon as a spell, and it's fantastic. Which it makes it even crazier. Now you can take warp lightning cannons and then take a Skaven wizard, because they got a bunch of Antoran wizards. They have literally every like hero's a wizard in that book. And then you're just casting Blizzard. You're casting like so much shit, and it's just like everything's blowing up. I love it. Then we have command traits, which they seemed okay from what I saw. Whatever. You're probably still just going to be taking your own command traits from your book. The battalions are kind of weird. So there's no more Galician veterans. You can't get your 2 ranks of units in. So that's kind of sucky for a lot of people, but maybe they'll change it. Maybe they'll just change the ruling at some point. I don't know. And for Skaven, it doesn't matter. So that's a thing. But a lot of other armies, like my Saurus warriors, are going to have to go back to using spears, apparently. So at the start of the hero phase, there are 2 or more friendly Antoran Locust units in this battalion. Roll a dice. On a 3-up, you gain a primal magic dice. So, cool. And then Wizard Finders of Antor. Each time a unit in this battalion's picked a fight, you can say they'll go on a wizard hunt. So you have to have like a hero, 2 troops, and a monster, or like the monster and the other troop is optional, but you can have a wizard and a troop, and they go on a wizard hunt. If you do so, pick 1 melee weapon profile in that unit's war scroll. Until the end of the phase, add 1 to the attack characteristic of melee weapons, but all the attacks that unit make in that phase must target an enemy wizard. Wizards cannot be in this battalion. So the reason this is weird to me is because it's called Wizard Finders of Antor, and it's like they're gonna go on a wizard hunt. So you have to pick a melee weapon profile on a unit, and then until the end of that phase, add 1 of the attack characteristics of melee weapons of attacking it, but it has to target a wizard. So it's like you're already fighting a wizard at this point. So you're not really going on a wizard hunt. You're just kind of like fighting a wizard. I don't know. This is such a weird battalion. I don't know. Like, you have to say that they're going to go on a wizard hunt, but they've literally hunted down the wizard already. That's what I don't get, right? Like, you're already in combat. I feel like this would make more sense if it's like, oh, we're going to go on a wizard hunt. There's a wizard. We get, like, +2 to charge against the wizard, right? Like, you found him. Maybe, like, or even, like, +1 to charge, +1 to your 1 melee profile, right? If you make the charge, even. Like, it just feels weird that you have to be in like, you've already hunted down the wizard. Just call it, like, Wizard Brawl. I don't know. It's just the wording that bothers me there. Anyway. Then we have Grand Strategies. They honestly seem okay. One of the funny ones, so they got, when the battle ends, you complete this. If 2 or more friendly wizard units are wholly within 6 inches of the center. When the battle ends, you complete this grand strategy if a model picked to be your generals in Antoran Locust and it's not been slain. Probably if you have a slan, just do that one, because if you lose your slan, you've probably lost anyway. When the battle ends, you complete this if there are no wizard units on the battlefield. This is a funny one, because if you take this one and your opponent takes this one, and they say your opponent's like, yeah, I'm going to take this one. I'm Khorne, right? And I want to kill all the opponent's wizards. But you take this one, and you're like, I'm Seraphon, and if my wizards die, then I get my grand strategy. So there's this weird, like, dynamic where neither player gets grand strategies. They just cancel out, right? Because if you lose your wizards, you get your grand strategy. If they kill your wizards, you get the grand strategy. So it's like, it's kind of funny. I don't know. I just thought of that when I was reading it. Then we have when the battle ends, you complete this. Fall enemy units have artifacts of power destroyed, and I'm never going to pick that. When the battle ends, you complete this grand strategy. Fall enemy battle line units from your opponent's starting army are destroyed, and there's at least one friendly battle line unit from your starting army on the battlefield. That could be good in horde army, like, you know, clan rats or tanky battle line units that you're going to have. I mean, I could see that being pretty decent. When the battle ends, you complete this if there are 2 or more endless spells or incarnates on the battlefield that are controlled or bonded by friendly units. So I'm probably just taking the one where it's like have your wizard not die, but I don't know. I'll have to see. There's probably going to be a bunch of things, or battle line. It probably depends on the army I'm playing, honestly. Then we have the battle tactics. This is like the thing that I've kind of wanted to look at the most. So these are interesting because the previous battle tactics felt like there's like 2 that were terrible, 2 that were like just really situational, and then like 4 that were like either easy or like that you did every game, right? So like eye for an eye, desecrate their lands, the deletion champion on a point right away, so you get that. Like there's just ones that you would just always do. So now I actually think these are pretty interesting. So we have intimidate the invaders. You complete this if at the end of your turn there are more friendly units wholly outside your territory than there are within your territory. This is probably a turn 1 or 2 battle tactic. Because you're probably going to have your units out of your territory by turn 1 or 2. Then we have reprisal. You complete this if the enemy unit that destroyed a friendly general earlier in the battlefield is destroyed this turn. I actually think this is a cool one, because they used to have kill something with your general, but now if somebody kills your general, you can have any of your units kill that unit. So I feel like it's a little more easy to get. It's like a revengeance type thing. I actually like this one a lot. I think this is a cool one that they're experimenting with. Even if it is more of a defensive one, I think it's cool to have that type of defensive battle tactic option available. Then we have Endless Expropriation. Pick an enemy unit that is controlling or bonded to an endless spell or incarnate. You complete this if any of the following are true. That enemy unit's destroyed. The endless spell's wild. The incarnate's wild. The endless spell's controlled by or bonded to a friendly unit. So pretty much kill a wizard that's controlling an endless spell, or an incarnate goes wild, or whatever. This one's kind of just situational. Like, I guess it could be all right depending on how many people are running a bunch of endless spells or incarnates or whatever. So we'll see. Then we have Magical Dominance. You complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if a friendly wizard unit successfully cast 1 or more spells and none of the spells cast by any units in your army were unbound. So this is one that I read at first and I was like, this sounds terrible, right? Like, you have to pretty much have none of your spells get unbound. Like, what? But I realized this is a perfect turn 1 like Antoran Locust type. This is like I have 1 wizard. This is like the perfect 1 wizard thing. You have your 1 wizard, you're like, I'm gonna cast my 1 spell, Mystic Shield. Wow, I did it. I got my battle tactic. All right. You could even have more wizards than that in like a Skaven army or something, like Ossiarch Bone Reapers, but you just choose to be like, here's my 1 spell, guys. Boom. Okay, I got it. I'm done. And then I'm going to spend a Primal Magic dice, make sure it goes off, just in case I didn't get it, right? So I think this is going to be a turn 1. I think this is going to be a lot of people taking this one turn 1, but maybe even like late game, like turn 4 or 5, when you only have 1 spell to go off. But I don't know. This is kind of a weird, risky one, because it's making you cast a spell, but it's also discouraging you from casting more than 1 spell. You know, you start gambling at that point. So I don't know. Then we have pick an enemy unit on the battlefield. You complete this if they are destroyed by damage inflicted by a spell or abilities of an endless spell. That's gonna be a pretty easy one, I would say. Maybe even like mid-game, or if you're obviously playing Seraphon, that's gonna be pretty easy to do. Then we have battle tactic of if 2 or more friendly units retreated this turn and 2 or more different friendly units made a charge move this turn, which it's called bait and trap. I think this one's pretty cool because it's actually encouraging you to like strategically play the game. Like you have units go in and tie stuff up and then they retreat and then you have other units charge in. And so I think I like that one. I think that's a pretty cool one. It's encouraging you to like, you know, strategize, actually think about what you're doing, play the game, thinking ahead of the current turn you're on and being like, all right, next turn, maybe I'm playing for the bait and trap. You know what I mean? Because you also have to have your units live in order to do this because you need 2 to retreat, right? So, and they have to charge because it's it also says the return 2 more friendly is made. So yeah, they don't have to even be near each other. It could be like 1 over here, 1 all the way over here. You make a charge in the middle and a charge. So I mean, it can also be just wacky like that, right? So I don't know. You complete this if 1 or more friendly hero and 1 or more friendly battle line unit each made a charge move this turn, and at least 1 of those is within 3 inches of an enemy at the end of the turn. This is the most Seraphon Saurus warrior one I could think of, because you literally are going to have your Scar veteran on Agrodon, and then you're going to have your Agrodon riders, and you're going to charge in, and then you want them to stay in combat, and then you just have the turn end, and you go, wow, I'm still in combat with my Agrodon rider and or hero. That's my battle tactic, and now I'm in the situation I want. Like, this is the most Agrodon rider battle tactic. Otherwise, I'm like, I guess this is probably good if you want to run it. This is like a Nurgle one, maybe, like tanky units that can get in there and tie people up, or like Chaos Warriors or stuff like that, right? So we'll see how this one goes. It's okay. Then we have Surround and Destroy. Pick 3 different friendly units on the battlefield. You complete this battle tactic. At the end of your turn, each of those is wholly within 6 of a different battlefield edge, and 2 or more of those are wholly outside your territory. This is essentially the Desecrate lands replacement. And I actually kind of like this because I think it encourages different types of army building, if that makes sense, right? Like, maybe if you're Seraphon... Well, if you're Seraphon, you have teleport, but let's say, you know, whatever. Maybe you take a really fast unit to get to one corner, and then you deep strike another unit over here, and then obviously in your own corner you have like something sitting back, right? So, you know, you might or like a teleport over here, and then one sitting back, and then, you know, something, just whatever can get over in the other corner, right? So it encourages deep strike, things like warp grinders, things like teleport spells, things like fast-moving units like Pterodon riders would actually be really nice for this. Maybe like turn 2, you're just sending those Pterodon riders as far down there as possible, right? So I actually think this is a fun one. And obviously you're giving up a bit of strategic positioning for this because you're just spreading everything out so far, and maybe, you know, if you get into that corner, you won't even get back into the battle till like turn 4 or 5 or something, but you're still getting those points. So I think this is okay. Like, honestly, overall, these battle tactics feel better than the last book, but they're not, I don't think they're amazing. I'd give them a solid, like, B-. I think these are some B- battle tactics, and I think the previous versions was like a C. I still really wish they included a monster battle tactic. Like, just a battle tactic that said, like, have a monster kill a unit, or have a unit kill a monster. Like, that, I think that would be cool, because you're encouraging just monsters to show up, and, you know, then each of you have a way to play around that as well. Like, oh, he has a monster. I can try to kill his monster. It's going to be hard to do, though, because it's a monster. And then I can be like, oh, but I have a monster, so I'm going to have my monster kill his stuff, and then I'll get the battle tactic. Like, I feel like that would be really cool, you know? I don't know. Either way. And then there's a whole bunch of battle plans. And honestly, the battle plans, from taking a look through them, all seem pretty solid. There's like a couple that I don't really like, but compared to the last edition, I think the battle plans are a lot better. Like the last edition, I was essentially like, all right, are we playing Jaws of Galette or Prize of Galette? And then maybe here or there throw in a different one. But like, I looked through all of these, and there's probably like 7 or 8 that I'd be like, yeah, this seems pretty fun. The only ones I don't really like are the ice fields. Seems kind of weird. I know you haven't even like seen these, but you can go look them up. It's like too much reading for me. And then I also don't like, it's like something with a tower. Towers in the tundra. Oh, it seems really not fun. Maybe it's like a lore-based one. It's literally like 2 objectives that are towers, and I don't like it. But all of the other ones actually seem good. They have a lot of like encouraging going second. Like they are playing more into that, you know, if you don't want to take the double turn, your opponent's probably going to get some sort of cool buff. I think that's really cool. I think they're doing a good job with that. So, I mean, for example, let's see. I'll give you an example of one. So, at the start of each battle round, the second player, during the battle round, each time a model in their opponent's army issues a command in that phase, their opponent must roll a dice. On a 3-up, an additional command point must be spent. So, I believe they have to, like, they pick a phase, and then during that phase, you might make your opponent spend more command points. So it's a little, like, specific, but it's still cool that you have that as, like, an option, right? Then we have, after determining which player will take the first turn, this is Nexus Collapse. The player with the fewest victory points can choose up to 2 objectives to collapse. If both players are tied on victory points, players roll off and the winner can collapse 1 objective. So you don't even have to collapse them, but you can collapse them. But you don't want to collapse a lot of them, because then you're going to like remove your ability to score. So that's actually a fun one, just like strategically planning this all out. I think that's pretty cool. There's one you're like sucking up resources from the ground, but if you do it too fast, you kind of run out. So you want to like slowly do it and then do it. There's actually some really cool battle plans in this that I'm excited to try out. And then I believe this is Geomantic Pulse. I think this one was pretty cool. It started each subsequent battle round, the objective. So like the objectives like move around and stuff. I don't know. Overall, my main point being, I think they did a good job on the battle plans. And I'm glad they did decent battle plans for the year-long GHB. Because we're going to have this for a year, right? So it's going to be interesting. And we'll see how it goes. But I'm hopeful. We'll see how the points turn out. They haven't released the points yet, but I'm sure that'll be coming soon. And hopefully they do well on that and change some stuff and have some good changes, because I'm hopeful for the GHB, dude. So we'll see what happens. Let me know down in the comments section below your thoughts and opinions on the new GHB. And yeah. Okay. So yeah.